This was the most fun game I've played on Set 11 PBE so far. It's on the latest patch of PBE, so it should be very similar to when Set 11 goes live. And we're going to review this game and talk about 7 lessons I learned playing 7 Fortune. So you can see this is Wandering Trainer, and I have a Fortune emblem on the Wandering Trainer. And one thing to note is that there are 5 Fortune units, and it caps out at 7 Fortune. There's actually an Easter egg at 9, but you need 4 emblems to get there. And Fortune emblems are uncraftable. So by default, to get to 7, which is when you really start to get the big rewards, you need 2 emblems. So when you start off with a Fortune emblem on your Wandering Trainer, you can think, okay, I might be able to go for 7 Fortune this game. And the key way to get there is you either need to get a Fortune Crest, which is great on gold augments. So you usually want to try to greed and roll all of your choices to try to find a Fortune Crest, or Prismatic, where you can get a Fortune Crown. Because if you can get one more, then you're already in line to get a 7 Fortune in place. Now, keep in mind that even if you hit 7 Fortune on a Wandering Trainer portal, you got to be wary of other players who might hit prismatic traits like 10 Story Weaver, which we'll see later is something that I might run into. So early game, you're pretty much just trying to lose streak. With Fortune, you get more and more luck as you lose. And anytime you win, not only do you lose some of your luck, which can be translated into rewards, but it resets your luck counter. And so the way that you get a really big cash out is you keep losing, you get more luck. And you can see there that it rolled a die when I put my 3 Fortune in for 2 rounds. And after the 2 rounds, depending on how much luck I have, I can either cash it out to convert it into rewards, or I can push my luck, which is similar to Set 10's Heart Steel. Was it Roll the Dice, or I forget what it was called now. But a really early 5 Fortune here is amazing because 5 Fortune doesn't actually give you more rewards, but what it does do is it gives you 3 HP per round. So it's like having a metabolic accelerator. And so if you think about, most of the time you're not going to get 5 Fortune in at 2-3, so I'm definitely high rolling this game. But if you, let's say, get 5 Fortune in at the start of stage 3 or 3-2, because you also don't want to lose, and getting 5 Fortune in the early game could be too strong just because you're getting so many units in. But if you did get 5 Fortune in at stage 3, by the end of stage 5, 5 rounds per stage, 3 stages, that's 15 rounds times 3 is 45 HP, which is kind of like the equivalent of 1.5 Tiny Titans. So you can see there that I had the option to cash out, but I pushed my luck, and it will roll the dice somewhere between 1 to 6 rounds. So the idea is that you don't know when you can get your cash outs, and you want to try to keep pushing your luck as long as you can, but there's a certain stage in the game where, depending on how much HP you have, once you get to stage 4, it's going to be really risky to push your luck. So rolling your augments, this Gnar encounter is really amazing for trying to get to 7 Fortune, to try to get that either Fortune Crest on a gold augment, or for a Prismatic to try to get that Fortune Crown. And you can see here that I'm playing around the augment, the Road Less Traveled, which for Sage units that are placed in the middle 2 rows, you get more XP. So that's why I'm positioning so awkwardly. But my plan is to play around Sage units, probably having Zoe hold items in the mid game, and then playing around a Morgana in the late game. But I didn't really realize until later I didn't need all my units in the middle too. I should probably put the Kabuko in the front, put the rest of my non-Sage units in the back. The other thing is playing around 3 Story Weaver is just really straightforward to do, since you got the Zyra, you got the Zoe, you got the Sivir. And the interesting thing about Kale and Sivir is they both buff attack speed. So you actually want your Sivir. Sivir actually buffs attack speed on her spell to adjacent units, and Kale is to the left and right. So you actually want your Sivir kind of diagonal from your carry and then your kale next to your carry. So in this case, so here we were fortunate enough to find the fortune crest. So we can plan to go 7 fortune, but I'm still missing the Annie, which is the 4 cost fortune. So the plan is hopefully somewhere around 3-5 to 4-1, I can go 7 and try to look for that Annie. The good thing is because I have the road less traveled, I can hopefully get to 7 with a lot of gold and try to hit Annie pretty quickly. The other hopefully better thing to do is at 3-5, if I can find an Annie on carousel, that just gets me to 7 fortune really quickly. And you can see I put the Annie into the team builder to try to find that. And here I can try to get another augment. And so what I'm thinking is Epic Plus lets me get to 7 earlier and get some rolls. Maybe I can try to find that Annie right now. The one risk is it does make me kind of strong. And then the other big lesson that I kind of learned later on, if you look at my augments, I have 3 non-combat augments. I have the road less traveled gives me XP, Epic gives me XP and rolls, Fortune Crest doesn't give me combat power. With 7 fortune, and unfortunately I don't see an Annie here, but with 7 fortune, you will have a lot of resources in the form of gold, items in the cash outs, units that are given to you. So you really want to try to get combat power through the augments. And I might pay the price later as a result of that, because after I do my big cash out, it can be hard to stabilize if you don't have good combat augments. And usually when you go 7 fortune, you need to probably spend one of those augments on a crest or an emblem. And you can see here, I was actually scouting before each round, and I didn't make the Zoe 2 until after the round started, and I even moved the Zoe to the front it was the Tristana that I made the Tristana 2, but you really have to make sure you are actively scouting to make sure that you're weaker than your opponents whenever you play Fortune. And here I did do some rolls, but I unfortunately didn't hit that Annie, and I am going to cash out soon, or I just did the cash out, and I'm still continuing to bleed health. So you can see I could have had the option to push my luck at the beginning of that last stage. Or here we go, sorry. It was at that beginning of the last stage. But if I had about 50 HP at the start of that last round. And going into stage 4, you take 5 damage per round lost, plus, however much you lose from opposing units. And players are going to be at level 7 or level 8 in stage 4. And so you might be taking like 15 HP damage each turn. If you roll a 6 round fortune cash out, 6 times 15 is like, what is that? 90 HP. And so even if you count for the 3 HP you're gaining per round, you just don't have enough HP. So it gets really risky to do another push your luck when you're entering stage 4. So I'm still taking damage. The cool thing is that I've just saved so much HP from having 5 fortune in. Again, going from stage 3 is 15 HP to now I'd be at like 17 HP if I didn't have the 5 fortune in right now. But I'm still looking for that Annie. I got to level 9. It's questionable whether I should have maybe rolled at level 8 to try to find that Annie. I think that might have been a better result because I could have gotten cash outs earlier. The thing is, this is my first, and there's the Annie finally. And unfortunately, I don't think, I was too worried about my life being low that I sold out of the Zoe. So I could have gotten 7 fortune in here, but I was just not sure how good the cash outs would be at 7 fortune. But in hindsight, I think I probably should just put the 7 fortune in there and maybe take in another loss or two, because the cash outs for 7 fortune are big enough that they can really stabilize you very quickly. But that's, in hindsight. But now I know that, and it can be very useful. So I get a Tactician's Crown here, And I need to find a replacement Zoe so I can get the 7 fortune in and hopefully stabilize soon. One big thing here is that so I find an Aurelia and I'm still rolling to try to find that Zoe. And I want to keep scouting the lobby to see how strong they are, but I'm kind of so dizzy from trying to figure out what my game plan is and what I'm trying to do, who I want to put items on. But the lobby is like still pretty strong right now. And because I have no combat augments, my board's still pretty weak. And I haven't really had enough power from my cash out to like stabilize. I'm still looking for that Zoe, and there it is. Now I can get the 7 fortune in. And you really want to, whenever you're trying to prepare for your cash outs, this is true for when you're trying to stabilize after your big cash out, or even now after 7 fortune. So one interesting thing about 7 fortune is you get a cash out every round, regardless of whether you win or lose. But you always want to prepare for how you're going to transition your board ahead of time, because when you're playing around fortune, you're going to get big cash outs and you need to deploy your resource quickly. Another big lesson was I threw a TG onto Diana there. I'm picking up another TG here. Generally, you don't want to take TGs off of item anvils when you're playing fortune. And I kind of learned this the hard way, is because you're getting so many resources from the fortune cash outs that you're going to run out of item slots if you keep on selecting TGs. So avoid picking up thieves' gloves when you are playing fortune. And the other thing is you want to really think about if you're going to keep 7 fortune in towards the end game, and this really depends on the strength of the lobby. It's very useful to scout the rest of the lobby to see how strong they are. What's their max cap? Are people going for prismatic traits like 10 Story Weaver or 10 Faded? Because if you are potentially playing against those lobbies, you need to cap out higher than them and hopefully survive long enough with your 7 fortune cash outs that maybe you get some really good cash outs to somehow beat them in the end. And the way to do that, if you're keeping 7 fortune in, is you probably need to hit like a Zoe 3, a Tristana 3, maybe even an Annie 3. And so I shouldn't have been selling my Tristanas. I think I had a Tristana 2 on bench that I sold. And I wasn't sure, like, because I still lost there. And so I was like, okay, do I need to get out of these bad fortune units? Maybe I go back to 5 fortune, 3 fortune. And so I think one experiment to run is if you can hit Zoe and Tristana 3, Annie 3, that might be strong enough, especially if you stay in 7 fortune long enough to compete with some of these prismatic traits. Or you try to go for, here I could potentially go for a 4-cost 3-star, because you look at the cash out, you're just getting so much value every turn, and I have so much gold. But again, I'm going to start running into some trouble with some of these higher capped boards. And since I wasn't holding the 3-cost fortune units, it really limits the cap that I have here, and which caused me to think I need to get out of 7 fortune. But then that basically removes a lot of the resource cap that going 7 fortune gives you. The other thing I'm not sure about and I'd love to hear if anybody knows the answer to this in the comments below. When you have 7 fortune, you basically can cash out every turn, but I didn't know if pushing your luck results in better prizes as a result of just pushing your luck, or whether you should just be cashing out every turn. So that's actually a question that I don't have the answer to. And I would love if someone does have the answers to comment below. And so there I lost again. And so that's when I decided, okay, I need to switch out of 7 fortune. It would have been great if I had a fortune emblem here, because then I could have had basically get rid of a shitter for a legendary unit. I have a ton of gold, but my board just wasn't strong enough with 7 fortune. So that's why I was kind of pivoting out of it, and I need to start hitting 5 costs. I also have 4-cost 3-star outs in Kane and Morgana, maybe Annie. And at the same time, I'm just like way too dizzy. My APMs, I have old man APM and I need to roll down. I steamrolled this guy, which is great, but we're going to come up against some pretty strong boards very soon. So we're going to keep rolling. And we hit the Morgana 3, which is amazing. I'm like, okay, I should easily win the game right now, right? Except I run into a Kale 4, 10-story Weaver Kale 4, and I barely lose to it. And I was like, what is this Kale? So now I'm like, okay, I need to hit another 3-star 4 cost. And so I'm close with Annie. I need 2 more Annies. I should also be putting the Morgana next to the Kale to get the attack speed buff. And I probably have another round or 2 before I have to face the Kale 4 again. But this all goes back to earlier when I first got that 7 fortune. I probably should have kept that Zoe and got another cash out or 2 to try to get a higher cap on resources. I get a Dragon Lord emblem. So now I'm getting 5 Dragon Lord, 5 Sage, which gives me a ton of AP in my backline, gives me a bunch of Omnivamp in my front line. And I'm thinking, I'm strong, right? No, this Kale is too strong. So I hope these fortune lessons help you push your luck and play some fun 7 fortune boards.